we've ended up in this magical place and we feel so lucky. And I'm like, that's what, like that connected to that's the essence of hospitality.
Yeah.
Right there. When you can give somebody an experience that kind of they go, wow, I feel so lucky and unexpected.
Better get ready, because here comes another great episode of the No Dishes Podcast. Season 6 is brought to you by Visit Bloomington. Check them out at visitbloomington.com. Play that theme song.
Hey, say, honey, let's go out to eat. Relieve our culinary duties. With all these restaurants to sweep us off our feet, they're bound to turn us into foodies. No dishes, no dishes, no dishes. We'll have a bottle of wine, relax and have a good time. No dishes, no dishes.
All right, it was back in 2020 when we first started this podcast. Pandemic was going on. I was writing food reviews. I partnered up with Wes over at Production House, and we started doing an audio-only podcast. And I'm like, you know what? The first person I'm going to reach out to, and if they say yes to do my podcast, it might become a thing. And that person was Jeff Mease. And then on September 1st, 2020, we released that audio-only episode, and we figured, what better person to have as our first ever return guest than our first ever guest,
Wow.
Jeff.
Okay, I'm honored.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, man.
I'm honored.
Yeah, I don't know if you really need the introduction, but One World Enterprises, Pizza X, Hive, formerly Lennie's. You got the Woolery Mill, One World Catering. I think Loesch Farms. Mm-hmm. Did I cover all the bases?
One World Kitchen Share.
Yeah,
which
of course.
It's not exactly a business, but it sort of is a business. Yeah.
I think, it's very important because, Jay Burton, who is the GM down there at the Kitchen Share, was down at Food Truck Friday, and almost everyone down there is a client of the Kitchen Share.
Really. Yeah,
so we're super grateful from putting on Food Truck Friday that One World Kitchen Share exists, because that's where the home base for a lot of these trucks for Loesch Farm meal service and all these other people. That's where we make our coney sauce, our chili sauce that's been around forever. And we were making the Spanish burgers, not to bring up a sore subject for our people that were mad we discontinued those. But yeah, man, how's the last 3.5 years been treating you?
Yeah, well, it's nice to be. Well, it's been a ride. You know, the challenges with staffing there right after the pandemic, and then really big cost increases. You know, cost increases of goods, and then cost increases of labor as you're like, we got to get some people, we got to find some people. So you just like, hey, we put it there, figure out how to get people. And that, as you probably know, we're back to a normal labor market, albeit at a higher level of cost, and that's fine. You figure out, you just got to price into it.
Absolutely.
That's the trick. You got to figure out how to do that. And but yeah, things now in my little world feel good. I've hired a COO,
Kyle Danke, who's been on. Yep.
Excuse me. And we've let Lennie's go to we sold Lennie's to a long-term manager, Mike Fox, and his partner Sammy, and just super thrilled about that, how that all went down. We did that deal in about 3 months, really quickly. But I really I felt like, I think of our business life as there's a world of stakeholders, and customers are the main stakeholder in many ways. Staff, community, vendors, and partners. People who kind of depend on the business staying alive to get income. That's me, that's Lennie, my partner, and that's certainly all our managers who are in profit sharing.
Yeah.
So I felt like all those people would benefit, all those stakeholders would benefit by Lennie staying an owner-operated restaurant, as we ran it for the first many, many years. And then gradually we've grown and we've gotten a little bit more corporate, and I was really worried that Lennie's was going to just kind of not be as sharp. Lennie's is really important. Means a lot to a lot of people. It means a lot to a lot of
Absolutely,
people.
yeah.
A lot of people have their first dates there. It's the first place people bring visitors to Bloomington. And not that we're perfect. I mean, we mess up, but we get it right enough of the time that people let us off the hook.
Slide a few, yeah.
But I'm really pleased with how it's going over there, and Mike and Sammy are psyched about it. And I think the restaurant's going to be solid for another. Let's see, how old is Lennie? 89 to 99. So 30 years and 34, 33 years, 35 years.
You said opened in 99?
Yeah, 89.
89, yeah, 35. Wow.
35 years. Yeah, so that should be solid for another run.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I run into Mike and Sammy so many places, and I've been there since they took over, and they're doing great. And then I think since we last talked, you also sold off BBC, because I think you had BBC.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy how much has changed since the last time we sat down. And I was telling Garrett before we started recording how when we were doing it, it was August of 2020, and we're at the One World conference table that you have. We're sitting 15 feet apart. We're masked up at the start, take it off to record. And it's just crazy how much things have changed since the last time we got to chat. And now we have cameras. So come a long way.
The
and
studio's great. I love it in here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Garrett's been a huge help getting us to where we're at today.
Beautiful.
So what kind of led? Obviously, you mentioned Lennie's. We're growing. We couldn't give it the attention it needed. What was was that kind of the same mindset behind Bloomington Brewing Company as well?
No, that was a different situation for us. So we were the first craft brewery in Southern Indiana, and basically the way it happened, Lennie's had opened in '89. A few years into the restaurant, we're like, man, the restaurant was really growing, but it was becoming clear, man, and Lennie and I were buried in it. We were, working all the time. We also had a great manager, Jeff Hamlin, who was a friend of ours and passed away way too young. Sad story. But about 4 years into Lennie's, we were starting, well, from the beginning of Lennie's, we enjoyed promoting these new beers that were showing up that nobody had ever heard of before. And that was really weird in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Beer was Miller and Budweiser, and Bud Light had started, Miller Lite, But a weird beer was like, you see a weird car on the road and everybody's like, what the hell? That was the way it was with beer. And so we gradually got curious, what's going on with these beers? Because the whole time we were growing up, we didn't have these beers, and all the good beers were from Europe or somewhere else,
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, well, these are beers from little breweries, and why don't we have one here? Oh, because Indiana's law doesn't work right. So, state law has changed in California and Washington first, and Oregon, all on the West Coast, and they gradually came this way. And I worked really hard to change the Indiana law for craft breweries, and we were the 33rd state to change their laws to allow craft breweries to exist, which for Indiana is pretty darn good.
No, absolutely. Normally we're 45 to 50. Yeah.
Yeah. If I hadn't done it, nobody else was going to do it, I think. So there was a loophole you could get through if like one person in a marriage owned the brewery and the other person owned the restaurant. But that was really messy. But that's how John Hill at the Broad Ripple Brew Pub did it. And he got open maybe 3 years before that, 3 or 4 years before. Anyway, long story short, the beer business, so we put this brew pub next to Lennie's. We got a space right next door and put in a brewery, put in a bar. It made the restaurant enough bigger that it really made the restaurant work. We went from like 72 seats to 128, and it made all the difference. So that was just great, and it really gave Lennie's a bit of distinction, and we really had just really solid beers all the way through, even through a number of different brewers. Well, when Lennie's moved to Kirkwood.
yeah.
But we just had a lease problem. IU was going to tear down that building. We couldn't come to an agreement with the landlord on the deal to build a new restaurant, which was going to be hugely expensive because they were bulldozing our old restaurant. So we moved to Kirkwood, but there was no room for the brewery there. So the brewery got separated from the business, and I gradually, over that time, I'd been learning, I don't really love the beer business. I like the hospitality business. I like feeding people. I'd even sometimes give people a hard time if they were in like having a 2 or 3 beer lunch. I'm like, a little early for that. I'm just,
It's not good for business, Jeff.
No, I know. But I like the beer with food thing, but selling beer, the beer business is really not the restaurant business at all. It's getting your product in packages on the shelves at Kroger and Walmart and Target. And obviously Big Red and those guys. But Big Red was always easy. They were local guys and supportive of us and very supportive. But I'll tell you what. There's nothing more really soul-sucking than going to try to sell your product to some, corporate guy like Target.
Oh,
I want to tell you.
Well, I mean, we dealt with Kroger getting our ice cream in there, and it was just what a process.
And it's a whole game, and there is a process, and we don't know it. And so you got to learn it.
You got to hire some agent that does all that stuff for you, and. Yeah.
So I'm a small town boy. I like starting interesting places. We've been so blessed because Pizza X has kind of been the bank that could support a lot of things, and not all of them have worked, as you know. But yeah, just growing a brand is not really what really turns me on. I like creating things for people, experiences for people.
Yeah, well, and we've talked about it too. A lot of people don't realize the amount of work that you did early on to get those laws passed. And so, yes, you were just doing Bloomington Brewing Company, but that laid the groundwork for many of the great breweries that we've seen come and go, and that
somebody would have done it.
That are still, but you still did it. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's Amanda, the Franklins, with what they're doing with it is fantastic.
They love it. The beers have just gotten better, and they've got more beers, and they seem to be having a great time. It's so fortunate to find people to carry on a brand, because that, back to those stakeholders, it's great for everybody.
Yeah, and they're passionate about it. It's in capable hands, especially something that you had for so many years, to see it be nurtured and grow and just a fresh set of eyes on it.
Right.
I'm sure someone could come into the Chocolate Mousse and have some ideas that I was like, I didn't think about that, But that's so great that both Bloomington Brewing Company and Lennie's found such great shepherds in a way, in Mike and Sammy and with the Franklins as well. For many years, some of your favorite restaurants here in Bloomington have relied on Fisher Farms for local, natural, and sustainable beef, pork, and more. Fisher Farms products have no artificial preservatives and no residual antibiotics or growth hormones. Next time you're dining out, be sure to ask if your favorite restaurant features Fisher Farms. Premium, natural, local, fresh, delicious. Learn more about Fisher Farms at fisherfarmsin.com. Pizza X is kind of what you're known the most for, obviously, and that started back in the 80s. If you really want to deep dive into the history, you can go listen to, because that's what we talked about a lot on the first episode we did. That was audio only.
I can't remember. Sorry.
No, yeah. 3.5 years, you're like, I can't remember 3.5 weeks. Come on.
Everybody else was shut down, probably.
Yeah. Can you give us the quick background on Pizza X getting started and becoming the brand that is known and loved? And how many locations?
Yeah,
now?
we just opened our 7th location. I think that's enough.
Yeah.
In one small town plus Ellisville.
You were telling me after you're opening the downtown one, you're like, I think this is the last one for a while.
I think so. I kind of Spencer would be great.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Get a little dreamy about Spencer sometimes, because Spencer's got some neat stuff happening.
Absolutely, yeah. I love. Spencer's great. We used to take our ice cream out to Babs Super Value out there. Yeah.
So Pizza X started in 1982. I was 20 at the time, but I was working on the project when I was 19. And here's the deal: I had gotten a job as a delivery boy for Domino's Pizza on 3rd Street. That store's gone. Mother Bear's is in where that old location now, right across the street across Swain from Amy. So I was a driver, and I was driving my girlfriend's car, Lennie's 1978 Chevette. It was a 76 Chevette. Anyway, she said I could deliver pizzas in her car if I took her out to Sunday dinner because the dorms didn't serve dinner. We both lived in Wright Quad.
Seems like a fair deal.
Yeah. And give the car and gas. And I didn't work I didn't work a ton, but I probably worked about 16 or 18 hours a week. But the pizza delivery business, that was back way before computer systems, no POS in the store. Domino's, the people don't realize how brilliant Domino's original setup was. Tom Monahan just reinvented a pizza shop, and these beautifully elegant systems from how you get the orders in to how they get made to how they get boxed and delivered. Really cool. And I'd grown up in a family business. My parents had a grocery store. And this is about as different from a grocery store as you could imagine because it was fast-paced. It was late at night. Your customers were mostly drunk. You were going to them.
I want to go to that grocery store where everyone's shopping is drunk.
Small town grocery store. You could just they could have made a sitcom about that. But so I loved this job, and I knew how to work, and these managers liked me, and they got me, and I ended up talking to them. They involved me in conversations. They wanted a couple guys, young guys, still like 20 years old. They were thinking of opening a competing pizza shop to Domino's over in this new shopping center that had just been built across town too. There's one space left on the end cap where the original Pizza X is now.
On 10th Street?
Yeah. That was 80. That was 82. And so I decided I was in business school. I wrote a business plan. I never written a business plan before, but I wrote the business plan, studied how to write a business plan, pre-internet, and wrote this thing and talked my father into co-signing a loan for me and one of these other two guys who got it started. Another guy tailed off and went another direction. But so we got the thing started, and that partnership was rocky. And after about 3 years, I bought him out. And Lennie and I were by then married, and she didn't like my partner. They didn't get along. And but at the point that he got out of the scene, then Lennie stepped into the business, and it was great because she was so good at all these things that I wasn't good at, and I hate it. Usually we hate the stuff that we aren't good at, but dealing with getting the payroll, done right, and all this stuff, checks and stuff you got to do.
The administrative, the paperwork, the
stuff.
bookkeeping.
I'm terrible at
that.
And I hate it. And I never take time for it, and it needs time, So that's why we're 42 years in, have never been a day late on a payroll.
Wow. That's
yeah,
great.
I mean, and that's because of Lennie. Totally because of Lennie. So anyway, that was the beginning of Pizza X. And I was telling you earlier, Pizza X back then, we were we were just trying to compete on price. Domino's sold a pizza for $5.99. We tried to sell it for $5.95. Yeah. And they had Cokes that were 25 cents, and we sold them for two free with a large, like this.
Yeah.
So gradually we saw that you can't compete against the big guys on price.
They just had too much purchasing power. They've got the processes down. Yeah.
You can't outwork them. Because they just squeeze everybody. So we've gradually just over the years tried to make the pizza better and better and in little steps, and just most stuff that I notice, particularly in food, but I think just generally, even pants that I buy, I'll find a great pair of pants that I found some at REI. God, I love these pants. I'm like, okay, I'm going to order some from the company. Found the company online. I get one pair, and they're great. And then I love these pants so much. It's all the only pants I'm going to wear. I buy 2 more pair, and they've changed. They're different. They do that with shoes too.
Yeah.
It's like, instead of making the product better, they decide this is what accountants do. the price goes up over here, and then like, we can't do that. We got to find another product that's a little cheaper, a little ingredient, an input that's a little cheaper. And so stuff tends to, in capitalism, I think, just get gradually a little worse over time. That's it. It doesn't have to if there's somebody who cares about the freaking quality, and that's like, no, we're not cutting that quality. We're gonna pay. We're gonna pay more, because the same thing is happening at all our suppliers, right? They're also facing these problems, so they're figuring out how to make it a little cheaper, or not cheaper, but a little worse, so they don't have to raise it as much. And we had the situation with gradually, pepperoni, probably about 50% of every pizza that goes out the door is a pepperoni pizza.
Wow.
Still, I don't know what pepperoni would have happened without pizza. Where would pepperoni be without pizza?
Big pepperoni celebrating, And,
our pepperoni that we were using like 15 years ago, it just gradually, I didn't love it anymore. And tried this pepperoni from when we opened that shop was that when? Yeah, I think so. Well, after I got back from the Florida venture that I did. But there was this company that my food supplier sold, a much smaller company out of Columbus, Ohio, called Ezo Sausage. And it's Sammy's family, actually. She's related to us.
Really?
Mike and
okay.
Sammy. Yeah. Ezo Sausage
I've
Company
never put
out
two
of
and two
Columbus.
together, yeah.
And we tried their pepperoni, and man, it was good. It was about 25 cents more a pound or 30 cents more a pound. But we switched to that, and still to this day, that's the only pepperoni we use. And I'll tell you, not to bang on the competitors too much, but I ordered a pizza from Domino's a couple years ago, and I thought the pepperoni was so terrible.
Yeah,
and
flavorless.
I did some research, and I think the place that people are using is Tyson. Tyson has now, we think of them as a chicken company, but they're massive.
They're a
meat
massive,
supplier,
yeah.
And I think all the chains use their stuff.
Yeah, that's Garrett pulled up their site here. I never even thought, because you read my mind. I was gonna bring up the pepperoni because we've talked about it before. I know how good the Pizza X pepperoni is, and I knew that it was a Ohio supplier that you've worked with forever.
Yeah.
I was talking to the folks over at Da Vinci, and they were talking about cup and char. Pepper, and I never heard that term. I was like, I love that.
Yeah, there's
because I know exactly.
Right there. Yeah.
It like instantly describes.
That's like that was the old pepperoni. That was when pepperoni, probably back in the 50s and 60s. That was the way pepperoni was.
Yeah, so you've got one of the things that you guys always talk about is like how quick your delivery times are. And I know I already mentioned a little bit about the processes. What have you guys done to get it to where you're like, hey, we're delivering this pizza. We're going to take your order. We're going to get it cooked, and we're going to get it to you, and it's averages under 30 minutes?
Definitely average under 30 minutes. Yeah. Which is
incredible.
Means, a lot of them go out at 19 or then end up there in 22. So some of them are 40, too. But we like the average when we look at the numbers to the customer's door to be well under 30. And I'd love to have it be like our kind of gold standard would be 26.
Okay.
We've hit that before on an annual basis.
Okay.
We always look at that number.
So 26 is the one.
Last year was 29 something.
That's still great though. I feel like, that's such to do all those things, get it there under 30 minutes. Like if I'm hungry, like I want something within 30 minutes. Otherwise it's going to be bad if anyone's around.
Yeah. Well, I think you want to have the commitment to having fast service. I mean, you can imagine people in a shop they're like, well, it's 30 minutes old. Before it leaves, it's 20, 30, 40. Kids not really maybe making that call. Like, the minutes make a difference. You just kind of have to have that mentality.
Yeah. What was it like back in the day when you were delivery driving for Domino's without did you just have a big old map that you whipped out anytime you took down an address and you just had to find where you were going?
Yeah, those first couple days delivering pizza, when you don't know the area, that was my big going into the job. I'm like, how do people, and I'd always wondered that anyway, how do people find the address of things? But then gradually you learn, there's a system, it starts somewhere. The odds are on one side, the evens are on the other. Where's this dorm? Well, once it's like where the the new place. Well, once you go to, once you go to Wilkie South, okay, you know where Wilkie South is. So it takes a little bit. There's a learning curve, but like anything, there's a learning curve. You know.
Do you still notice that with drivers now, where like your experienced drivers are just quicker because they don't even have to put it into Google Maps? They're just like, oh, no.
Oh yeah, drivers can get very, very good at shaving minutes. And and now they're on the. It's all the computer. The POS knows everything. So, nobody can very easily stop and see their girlfriend anymore for a few minutes. Whatever that used to happen,
Big Brother's watching.
Yeah, Big Brother. One nation under surveillance.
Oh, there you go. Right, nice. Yeah.
We can even know what somebody's top speed was. No, it's there on a report. Yeah. So it's a little bit.
I was thinking about moonlighting, driving for you guys, but not now.
You're
gonna be like, Jordan did 95.
You gotta do things by the rules.
Yeah. Well, it's like I'm just trying to get that. I'm trying to hit that 26 minutes, Jeff. Come on.
Gradually, when you get bigger, as you become more successful, this is what I've seen. You are expected to become more compliant. The things that you used to do, just were like, no, I can't. No, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Too much liability, too many people gonna slice and dice you, whatever.
But it's so much fun to be fast and loose, isn't it?
Well, so you can start some new thing when you're young and be that, but know that eventually you're going to have to become compliant.
Okay, the risk outweighs the reward once you've already kind of managed to secure enough. Okay, that's good to know.
You see those people sort of who think it's the Wild West and they operate a bigger business like they used to operate a smaller business, and they get slaughtered.
Doesn't fly.
They end up in jail or lawsuits galore or whatever. So,
we've had some of those around town over the years. I've thought about there's some stories that we haven't talked about on here that I was like, man, they did a coupon scheme. What? Like some of the Bloomington lore of the things that like successful business people have been arrested for is fascinating. But we're not going to talk about that.
I have not been arrested. I'd like to say right here, I've not yet been arrested. Not that I've not done some illegal things.
Gary, that's our intro bit. For the record, I've not been arrested. How's Hive going these days?
Hive is really coming along. Yeah, Hive continues to build. Still, I would call it a financial success by any stretch of the imagination, but still love that restaurant, and it's continuing. We really take a long view of things, so
which is great.
Hive's in year 6.
Wow, man, it's already been 6 years. And I've noticed it from the eyeball test, from the consumer perspective, how much busier it's gotten. And it reminds me, and I've talked about this so many times, about our Brown County Chocolate Mousse location. Those first few years there were so slow, very, very slow, but we just stuck with it.
Yeah.
And eventually you get in the thing is, you think about where to go out to eat, and unless you've gone to a place several times, it doesn't even pop into your head, even if you want to go there. And so you just have to be there and stick it out. And then it's like, let's go to Hive.
Yeah.
Like you can do as much advertising as you want, but you just have to get in that rhythm, and you have to be one of the places that just pops in people's head when they're trying to decide where to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I did your grab and go just once so far, but it's so great. Just ordered it, walked in, talked to nobody, which believe it or not, I like sometimes.
Oh yeah,
and just
I bet you do.
Went in there, just snagged it, walked right out, didn't even say
pull up at the curb, double park, zip in there,
throw the flashes on. You'll be in and out before they can tow you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, should be. I'd like that. In fact, I did a little live Facebook of that one time, and I was in and out in 19 seconds.
Oh man,
yeah. Should be, because you don't have to pay.
Right.
You've already paid.
So you guys are doing what I think are some of the best burgers in town.
Thank you.
You started, though. Did you start doing the Mr. Beast burgers? And then you were like, you know what? And that had a lot of issues.
No, it was all at the same time. We were planning to do a smash burger, and I think we'd started our smash burgers prior to Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
But I had a marketing guy who works with us, and said, he forwarded me this thing, and I sort of rolled my eyes. It's like, okay, yeah, it's flash in the pan. When you're older than 40, you've seen a whole lot of flash in the pan. You know what that looks like, and you almost have and not that I'm always right, but I'm like, that is just, not that Mr. Beast hasn't built a great brand.
Oh, of course, absolutely, yeah.
But whether you're going to make food that people are going to continue to eat for a couple of years,
making YouTube videos versus running a restaurant or a ghost kitchen are very different.
Yeah. So, but we thought, we'll get some exposure out of this, and it'd be interesting to try, and we'll learn something. So we negotiated real hard with them, and because I didn't care if we didn't. So our deal was better than they normally make with people. Is still basically that's the thing where they wanted to keep 40% and give us 60%. Okay, right? Now 60%, but we do all the work and pay for everything. And they just market it really for 40%.
That's insane.
Now, I'll say that's the same deal that IU Sports is offering us on another thing, but we got it down to like 70-30.
Okay, we met.
But still,
we met today.
Yeah.
Did you? Okay. Just before I came here, sitting that back and forth email on that specific thing. Sorry.
Yeah, so, that's a little bit different because people, it's a lot different, let's say, because people, when you go to events, you're used to paying $10 or more for a beer. And I think I was in San Francisco for the Dead shows at the end of the tour last year, and they had a pizza place in there, and what used to be called Candlestick, I forget what they call it now, but the pizzas were almost $60.
What?
Yes, $60 for a pizza. I took a picture.
Well, you said San Francisco. Is that the Levi Stadium now?
No, that doesn't sound right.
Okay.
But it does have another name.
Yeah, because the new 49ers stadium is Levi Stadium, but I don't know.
No, this is baseball. This is a baseball.
That's right.
Stadium.
Yeah, sorry.
So that's a little bit different. But we were selling burgers, Mr. Beast burgers, to customers, at home. So they couldn't be, crazy expensive. Anyway, there was a brief flutter off the bat,
right.
But then gradually they got so many bad reviews. We were doing a great job, but online they got a ton of bad reviews.
Mr. Beast and that company end up suing each other.
Oh, yeah,
and
it did.
What?
Well, you can't control the quality when you're doing something like that, and that was obviously right off the bat. It's like, hello, they didn't say whose meat we should use or whatever. You can't build a brand that way.
Really? Oh,
No.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They're like, just figure it out. We trust you.
Yeah.
Which it worked out well when they're working with you, but they weren't working with you across the U.S.,
Thank God.
But what separates your burger now? Because again, I think is it a potato bun?
It is a potato bun. It's that classic smash burger.
Oh, it's so good.
There's a brand. I can't think of the brand right now. But you put the beef, you put onions down and a beef ball on it, and then press it down. We've got really nice griddles at Hive that are chrome plated griddles that are like when I bought them, I bought him out of New York. That's a friend of mine who's a chef in New York said, okay, here's the deal with griddles. It's like you can get a regular griddle for $5,000. But I want you to buy the $10,000 griddle. I'm like, okay. Why? He's like, it's what all the Greek guys in the city use. They swear by them. It's worth it. I'm like, okay, it's hard to pay double for something when it's a big number.
Yeah.
So
or anytime it can be a small number if it's double.
It cooks differently. They cook better and they clean nicer. They're easier to clean for the staff. Every single day, 365, so and already how many of those in 6 years you got? So it makes a difference.
Got those pictures.
Yeah.
Garrett
but
pulled up
the burgers
the crisp edges.
Yeah, they're really yummy.
How much are you paying for your restaurant's business insurance? What's affordable for your needs? What does your agent do for you that isn't just policy writing? Tony Brown with First Insurance Group has a keen eye for the policies all restaurant owners and operators would love to have. Tony provides risk management and other HR resources free of charge as your agent. Tony has no waiting period for loss of business coverage starting from day one, minute one, unlike other carriers' 72-hour waiting period. Tony has no audit for liquor liability and general liability, saving you time so you can focus on running your restaurant. And Tony's insurance carrier is the preferred vendor of choice for the Indiana Restaurant and Lodging Association. Call or text Tony Brown with First Insurance Group today, 812-327-2321. Set up a free review of your current policy and see how Tony can help you protect your largest investment, your business. 812-327-2321.
I don't want to look because
I know.
I'm doing a juice fast right now. So
I know.
No burgers. They have come into my mind.
I have ate very little today.
Yeah.
I told you doing the home stretch of this
That's the
thing.
spirit.
I had like a muscle milk. I had a 230 calorie like breakfast sandwich from Starbucks because I was going by there just on my way back from the warehouse. And then Fisher Farms gave us some samples because we might do them for our coney sauce and for our pulled pork sandwich. And so I still had some of the pulled pork. I was like, perfect. I make myself a pulled pork sandwich. That'll tide me over. But that's been about it all day.
Sweet.
So yeah, Garrett,
yeah.
that was very difficult to look at those.
Yeah.
You guys have used Fisher Farms for quite a while, haven't you?
We don't use Fisher Farms at Hive. For those burgers, we use Butcher Block.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We use Fisher Farms for still a lot of stuff at Lennie's. The ground beef at Pizza X is all Fisher Farms.
There you go.
Yeah. The meat, I find meats like that easy to buy locally, and eggs. We buy all our eggs locally.
Rhodes Farm, is that it? Or?
Yeah, they're 3 times the price maybe, but Rhodes, they're just better eggs, and it's a way you can get, the eggs are cheap really anyway.
Right. So 3 times that super
yeah.
cheap number isn't too bad. Yeah, I bought some like Heritage free rate. It was like $8 for a dozen. I was like, yeah, sure. That was great. It had like the amber yolks, and they were delicious.
Yeah,
they were good.
they really are good.
One of my guilty pleasures is just like an egg sandwich.
A good egg. Oh,
Yeah, just a little mayo.
Yeah.
Just
try some bacon, and the way I learned to eat BLTs, when my mom made what she called BLTs, but they always had a fried egg on them.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
BLT add bacon or add egg. Yeah. BLT add bacon. The BBLT. Have you been down to the farm down there in Jasper for Fisher?
Oh, to their farm? Yeah. No, I have never been to their farm.
Man, that's I went down there on a trip with a group from Upland once, and it was a good time. And I was driving the party bus that they went in, so they brought like a keg, and we're driving this Ford 350 shuttle van through the farm, and I'm like, dude, I don't think this thing was meant to go off-roading, but it was really cool to see their whole operation that they have down there. How was that? One of the things I wanted to ask you about was your Eclipse party at Loesch Farm, because you just opened up your farm for the Eclipse Day and said, come on through, and you had 300 people camp or something?
It was pretty magic. It was magical. What we did, where to start that story? Well, when I heard about, all these people went in 2017 down to Tennessee, and I'd heard about the eclipse, because there's an eclipse happening down there, and people are driving, and they're traveling. And I'm like, really? I mean, I've seen eclipses before. And they're like, oh, it's really cool. Okay, all right. Well, I didn't have any interest in going. And it said some of the people, when they came back, I'm like, so how was it? And they're like, oh my God. Like, really? And so I started thinking about the eclipse, and I'm like, okay, I need to do something, because at my farm we have a great view of the sky. So I've been thinking about it for years. And, I traveled in Asia this winter, and I didn't really get anything big set up, except there's a local band that plays Pink Floyd, and they're really super great. Adam Hart, Mother, and I'd lined them up like a year ago, and I was telling the guys like, "What? What are you talking about? It's a Monday morning show," and I'm just like, "I want to make sure that I'm the guy who's going to hire you," and he's like, "Well, don't worry, nobody else is calling." I'm like, "No, they're going to call. They are going to call." So I got him all lined up, and then I got the Porta-Johns signed up, because I knew there weren't going to be any Porta-Johns available, So then it ended up in the last, as the build up, and everybody's like, you're not going to be able to move for 10 hours and all this stuff, and I didn't know, I fell for it like most people.
Yeah.
Although I thought, how bad can traffic get in town? Where are you going? I'm like, what are all these people doing in town? I mean, the show is everywhere. So, about a week before, I'm reading all this stuff. I actually go, and I'm like, I wonder how much hotels are going for, right here. Oh, $1,000 at the Hyatt. And
$700,
and
$800.
campsites, I'm looking at campsites, and they're $200. And like, this is awful. This is my sort of part of me coming out that's like, people want to come to my town and they can't because it's ridiculously priced.
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta do something. So I decided we'll let people camp at the farm. And I'm like, I think there's some website that's like Airbnb for camping. And I got online, I found it, Hip Camp. So I put up some campsites, and just a week before, mind you, but we ended up with 150 groups of people camping from all over the country.
Wow.
Came as far as Idaho and Jersey and Georgia, and it was the most fun. It was so cool. And we ended up not having that many people come out from Bloomington. Maybe a couple hundred. So we had probably about 400 people for the event. But we made the camping really, really cost. I feel like it was $25 to camp, and I ended up bringing out coffee. I said I'll deal with, because I'm a coffee drinker, and the one terrible thing about camping, you can poop in the woods if you have to, but no coffee is a real drag, or having to get in your car and drive to a gas station. So I'm like, I'll set up the coffee. So I ended up doing coffee.
Sounds like a steal for a $25 campsite. Right. You get coffee from
people
Jeff.
had a great time.
Yeah.
And you can go on Hip Camp and look at Loesch Farm. We got the most effusive, beautiful comments. It felt like people like, we've ended up in this magical place and we feel so lucky. And I'm like, that's what, like that connected to that's the essence of hospitality.
Yeah.
Right there. When you can give somebody an experience that kind of, they go, wow, I feel so lucky and unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, unexpected. That's huge.
Unexpected. Yeah. So that was special. And no way to build a business on that, because that ain't happening again.
Right.
So that was a one-time. We're grateful that we got to have that experience.
Thanks for the 5-star reviews.
Yeah. And even how rare is that there's going to be a thing other than every moment that doesn't come again, that's never going to happen again in the same way. Because you always hope, maybe it'll be like, but next year we'll do it. It'll be like this year, like that. But not this.
We had a great time down at Switchyard Park, and there was like 8,000 people. There was a lot of people, and I met people from all over. So I think, even though the traffic wasn't what we thought it might be, I think there was still a lot of visitors. And it wasn't a complete that was a bust. And just even talking with Visit Bloomington, like in our meetings that we had, it all seemed like it was just better to be prepared than not.
I think that,
and it was
that's
just
fair.
Tough to tell. But I think compared to 2017. There was so many more people that lived within this line of path of totality that it was twice as many people. So there's all
that,
these many places.
And the roads
are
different. We've got big, the people can move faster. I can imagine those roads in Kentucky, not so many
rural
roads and just 2-lane roads.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the PhD astronomy students. We had a couple of them on, and she witnessed it in Georgia, but took them 6 hours to get home because it was just a 2-lane rural road, and everybody was just trying to use it to get out. I went over to the farm for the first time last year. You hadn't done it in a while, and you had your first kind of yearly get together. Yeah,
we do a kind of a pretty much public big pitch in and pig roast in the fall for the fall equinox.
Okay,
started not every year, but most years, and it's on a Saturday. Starts at 5. Everybody's invited. It's just a fun. It's like a local foods pitch in kind of harvest party. It's up, and we set up hay wagons. And it's amazing. Have some music. BBC brings out some beer, so it's a fun thing. It's just like throwing a party that's a manageable size. It's usually like 400 people.
Yeah. No, I only brought it up because that was my first time to the farm. It was so beautiful. It was such a cool community thing. Which I always talk about, like Food Truck Friday. That's my favorite part. It's just a community event.
Yes.
And that's how I felt going out there. Just the pitch-in aspect. Now, I got there late. I was past the dinner part, but there was still some food out. But you had the big old fire. Might be the biggest fire I've ever been around. And just drums going and people dancing. I'm like, man, this is awesome. And so I love just seeing someone have land and putting it to good use and sharing it in just such a cool way.
Yeah, we all have something to give. So
Can we talk at all about any trips down to Central or South America? I know you sometimes go down there, and I find it super fascinating.
Sure.
Okay. Well, or sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What do you want to know?
Well, just what have you found the benefit of some of these trips, and because it's something we've
These
talked
plant
about personally.
medicine
Yeah,
trips.
correct.
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk about the whole plant medicine journey. So there are, there are a number of psychoactive plants that indigenous populations have used, right? Really Michael Pollan's work on, How to Change Your Mind on Netflix. That's a great way if you want to learn just some basics about it.
Yeah, okay, great.
For anybody. But I've been kind of an enthusiast of these altered states since I was a teenager. And I've found I just feel like they've been a very impactful part of my life. And not something that I do, I've always just kind of done them occasionally, not regularly, but there's a resurgence now in sort of tourism to the people in Peru, people in Ecuador, people in Mexico, where the laws are not as stringent. They've set up retreats and retreat centers, and a lot of them are great. And there's some fly-by-night places too. Got to be careful about who you choose. But I connected with this guy who wrote a book on yahe. Yahe is very similar to, more people have heard of the term ayahuasca, which is a blend of at least two jungle plants that is psychoactive dimethyltryptamine, DMT, which is a very strong but very safe compound that actually that's in most mammals, maybe all mammals make it in their body. So dimethyltryptamine. So these plants have been used for nobody knows how long. No, I mean nobody knows how long. We just know that certainly as long as white people have known about these cultures, but there's very little written history. So you don't. But my experience of imbibing with them is that it feels very ancient. This experience. These I've been to. I think I've consumed this stuff about 16 times.
Yeah.
Over the course of about 7 years, and in basically two different locations. This last one that I went down to Ecuador, Jonathan Miller Weisberger wrote a book on yahe, really well researched. He spent years with the native population in Ecuador, and he hosted us down we flew into Quito. We drove several hours to some indigenous lands, hiked in a couple hours, set up camp, and then stayed there for a week. And then on 2 nights during that, we hiked further into the jungle and had these experiences with this yahe that Jonathan had made.
Wow.
And Jonathan said that he would not serve any that he hadn't made. A lot of it, I used to think, before I knew much about it, that it was people always made their own. But no, a lot of it comes from Hawaii.
Oh, interesting.
And Peru. There's actually commercial, kind of at least semi-commercial preparations. But anyway, so you drink the stuff and then you, in a group, and then you go on a psychedelic journey for 4 to 8 hours. And there's typically a lot of purging with this thing. And you just go into an altered state where you get to really explore a lot of things that are in you.
Yeah.
And a lot of self-reflection. A friend who went down with me, the first time she did it, and she's done it half a dozen times now, she said changed her life, totally changed her life. And this last time when we went together in Ecuador, she had kind of a challenging time. But that happens sometimes. It's not all sort of rainbows and,
Right.
But she did get to speak with her father, who had died during COVID in China.
Oh,
and
wow.
And she had not been able to, and she really felt bad, and she asked for that experience, and she got it. So a lot of people are able to kind of connect with feel like they can connect with ancestors. And
That's
I think
incredible.
that's pretty cool.
I had never heard about that aspect of it before. Obviously, I knew about self-exploration and purging, and that's the part that's kind of scary to me, is like going through that, like almost trauma, but it obviously gets you. It's good to experience it.
If you've never thrown up with a bunch of people around, it's pretty confronting. It is until you do it once. Then it's like no big deal. But I think, being human, a lot of these things, there's that line that I think it's from Joseph Campbell. It's so good and so kind of scary. It's like the cave, the cave you fear to go in is where the treasure is, what holds your treasure, and so that's kind of true. So these kind of things are a little confronting, and particularly this plant medicine, any plant medicine, I think, it kind of calls to you. People are like, nobody's going to talk anybody into going to drink ayahuasca.
Right.
It's just like,
they're not you're not getting peer pressured.
It's just like, no.
That's such a good point.
And the people who've done it, I'm not inclined to try to like, oh, you should go and do this. I can speak kind of glowingly about the possibility, but I've never really tried to convince, maybe except, maybe I do. I am something of a salesperson.
No, but usually it's something that people find themselves.
You gotta sort of, when you're called,
Yeah, and they'll feel it out and ask questions like I am now, So obviously, like a lot of people you hear maybe that first time, it's life-changing. They look at life through a different lens. What about after that 6th, 7th, or 8th time? Are you coming back and still feeling like you're looking at things in a new light?
Yeah. Well, the thing about, since I've been exploring these things since I was a teenager, I don't really feel like, I'd love to have this life-changing experience, but I don't know. Nothing's that impactful to me.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, blooms a little bit. Maybe I've changed it little bits at a time.
Yeah, incrementally.
But, sorry, I lost the track of your question. Oh, why to go back? I noticed the first sessions that I did, and I actually lucked in to do it with a Gabor Mate, who's this famous writer in the health field, brilliant guy, and he was putting together at the time some ayahuasca experiences with a shaman that he really cared for in a little town called Yalapa, Mexico. And that was my first time. But I noticed most of the people there had all done it many times before. Many times, like 40 times.
Wow.
16 times.
And, still,
and I'm like, sometimes when you hear that, it's like, well, especially if you're going in thinking you're going to get something. Well, I guess they didn't get what they were looking for. They've been back 20 times. But now in the rear view mirror, I can say that each experience is different and each experience brings me something. And usually when you go down on a retreat, you'll do this 2 or 3 or 4 times in a week.
Right. Yeah.
In a week. So, and then the experiences are always different, always different, each from the other.
So it's fascinating. Thanks for enlightening me on some of that, because I think it's so cool that you've always been so open about all that, and you're so successful as well, which you don't see a lot. A lot of people are like, "Oh, let's keep that," but you're like, you'll share stuff on Facebook and just the benefits of some non-traditional, or I guess more traditional than traditional.
I am a believer I'm a believer in like the human potential movement, that we can and do need to change. And these substances have been used safely for a long time, and in communities, not like the way we do alcohol. You got to be 18 and then you're going to go to a bar, and like in Indiana, you can't have children in a bar, this kind of thing. That's a totally contrived way of doing drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about our alcohol system in this country, and it comes from our puritanical background, and we abuse alcohol. We abuse. There's a great deal of abuse potential everywhere. These substances, I don't think so much abuse potential, because honestly, they don't feel that good.
Yeah, well,
I mean, they can't. You're like, come down and you're like, "Ooh, okay, I don't need to do that again." For a while. Like that. It's not like give me another line. No, it's
the idea of purging and reliving trauma, or like that doesn't sound fun.
No, that's right.
That doesn't sound like, oh man, that sounds like a good Friday night. You know?
Yeah.
It's the opposite of escapism. It's like, you know what? Let's just dive into all the stuff I'm trying to hide from. Thanks for sharing. I really appreciate that. What I want to get into more general, we've talked about some of these individual places that you have, but you've been very successful over many, many years now. I mean, you're over 40 plus years since Pizza X opened.
Yeah. Whew.
Better business, better community. For over a century, the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce has been a cornerstone of business growth and community development. They are dedicated to helping local businesses thrive. Their business is all about your business. Join the Chamber today. Call 812-336-6381 or visit chamberbloomington.org to learn more. If you can give advice to someone like myself or other people within Bloomington that are just trying to be successful and make it, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way that you would maybe like to pass along to the younger generation?
Yeah. Sure, I got some. First one, better to be lucky than to be smart.
Okay,
I love that. And you can't control that, but
it's funny. I've been bringing that up a lot lately where I've gotten some congrats on things. I was like, I got very lucky in a lot of different ways.
I was telling, the fact that I got that job at Domino's, that I fell in to that location. I mean, the old real estate thing, location. And I do like to kind of push back against that idea sometimes, because it's like I have seen these successful businesses that maybe out in the country, but people find their way. They're beautiful stories, but it's still true. Great location makes things so much easier, and you have a lot more possibility, less chance of failure. Mm-hmm. Okay. So getting lucky, and to get lucky, I think I looked at that approach, and I just followed I wanted to get a job. I wanted to get that job. Like, I just kind of followed my instinct,
Trust your gut.
All along. Trust yourself and be willing to kind of stretch yourself. I think that's one. I think in business, particularly the restaurant business, but I think business generally, getting the price right. Getting the price right is so key. I see this with people all over the food service business. If there are 450 places to eat in Bloomington right now, maybe, and half of those are not here in 5 years, probably. Definitely 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And that's the sad truth. And all businesses fail for the same reason. They run out of money. And you're going to run out of money that much faster if you don't have your pricing right. I like to tell people, in the pizza business, let's say you're selling a $10 pizza. They're a little more than $10 now, but 5% is a profit you kind of want to shoot for in the restaurant business, right?
Yeah.
5 points. That's 50 cents on a $10 pizza. So if I see a competitor opening up and they're selling pizza for $1 less than we are, I'm like, well, that's not going to last.
They're going 50 cents the other way.
If they're that much bigger, and maybe they're buying crappier stuff. So, but they're not 50 cents cheaper. They're a couple dollars cheaper. But I really counsel people to really, you tend to underprice when you start, because you don't realize all the costs.
Yeah.
And you're like, how can you not make money selling a $2.50 pizza for $10? I mean, you got $7.50 in profit.
Yeah.
Well, not really. Yeah. You're going to end up with maybe a tiny little bit in profit after you pay everything. So the pricing, getting the pricing right, and to get the pricing right, you got to give some attention to the business stuff. The learn what an income statement is. Particularly, you can figure out the balance sheet by kind of osmosis as you go down the road. But what an income statement is super important. You can make one for yourself. How much money came in? where did it go?
Yeah.
You know, and what's left or what's not left,
Yeah.
and where'd the money come from that wasn't left? I borrowed it. Okay, well, eventually you're going to have to pay that back. So I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I've admitted it before, where, you know, for my first 5-6 years at the Chocolate Moose, we're like, man, we are driving revenue like crazy. Like, we're doing a great job of driving revenue, but we're not making money.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was my fault because I kept resisting raising prices. I'm like, no, we can't.
Yeah, yeah.
Or we would just a little bit and just didn't realize that the whole time we just had to kind of rip the Band-Aid a little bit. And that was the reality of, hey, this is our business. This is our business model. In order to pay for all these costs that go into that cup of ice cream, that's what it needs to be priced at.
Yeah. There has to be a surplus as you go along, because if there's not a surplus, then you're borrowing or you're cutting costs. Then that's what makes people make things cheaper. Right?
Yeah.
We can't afford this good mayonnaise anymore for our ranch sauce. We'll buy the cheaper one. We'll start getting Cisco's $5 cheaper a case.
We'll start cutting labor, and the experience is terrible when you go in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or even the pressure. Labor is an interesting thing in our business, because labor, a lot of people don't realize, labor in the food service business is 30 to 40% when you add all the fringes. 30 to 40% of every dollar that you spend for a meal is labor. Not all industries are like that. Like, you know, in the grocery store, Kroger's labor cost is probably like 6%.
Yeah.
You know, but in restaurants where the employees are the ones really giving the experience, the people cooking the food and the servers. And if they've got a lot of pressure from management, from owners, you know, owners' money pressure gets filtered down to the manager, and then suddenly it doesn't feel very good anymore. And this is what I think kills a lot of restaurants in the first few years, is you blow all the money getting it going, and you don't have enough to cover your losses. It's understandable. It's human nature. And then the pressure starts, and the staff get frustrated.
Absolutely. You guys do open book accounting, right?
We do
I
open
think
book
is fascinating.
management
Yeah.
is, I think, the absolute way to run a business, especially a small business like ours. Yeah. To help people, sort of help all the staff understand where's the money going in the business. It's not smoke and mirrors. You know, it's we're all sort of working together. And that was the last thing that I was going to answer your question of what advice I'd give to people is, as soon as you're making a profit, sometimes even before you're making a profit, but certainly as soon as you're making a profit, figure out how to get the people who are actually doing the key work, the managers, on a profit sharing basis. That is so vital and so powerful. And it's how Domino's grew from basically one store in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and to you know, I think Domino's didn't take an outside franchisee, and they weren't all franchise stores, but they were mostly franchises. And you know, people buy franchises, so they had to sell them. Well, who's buying them? You had to be a Domino's manager to buy a franchise. For I think the first close to 20 years, probably.
Wow, that's
nuts. And how did those managers get the money? Well, they were sharing profit of their stores. That was a thing that I learned from Domino's, is that they gave their store manager 25% of the bottom line on a monthly basis from that store, and then that 25% was a cost in the next month. So it actually isn't 25% because it's closer to 20%. But the fact is that big chunk of money going to the manager. And so what that does as an owner is it puts the manager and the owners in the same game, right? So that we're working together to build this profit over time. And we want to do things that if we can teach the manager to take a long view, because if the owner is going to be successful, he must have a long view. So then the manager, you can help, like, okay, well, it costs money to clean the bathrooms. Yeah, but if that's not a place that we want to save money, because dirty bathrooms hurt the business.
Absolutely,
There's a lot of, there's huge numbers of those kind of things. Open Book then kind of takes that same philosophy and puts it down further into the organization, basically to all the staff. Because basically we're now sharing profits. We share all the profits with the manager, and then when we hit certain targets, we're sharing those with all the staff based on the hours that they work.
Interesting.
Now, nobody's getting rich on it. I mean,
No, yeah, but
the
it's
numbers
still-
aren't. But
yeah.
it's people get to see. And what I love best about Open Book is, the typical employee is going to work at Pizza Axe for 2 or 3 years, right? Man, if we can give those staff members a little opportunity to understand how business works, and businesses are more similar than they are. I mean, business. There's if you can learn how the pizza business works, that's how a lot of businesses work.
Yeah.
And so we give that offering to people, and I think gradually, so our people get more out of the job. It gives them more success. Maybe they send their little brother to work for us, those kind of things. Or we just get a better reputation over time, and we feel like we've contributed in a way. I had the real blessing of growing up in a small business family, and that was, I didn't like it at the time when I was 10 years old, cleaning bathrooms, but man, it gave me a great start in life that most people are generations away from, having any involvement with a small business.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, over time, I see the advantage because I find it fascinating, the Open Book operating system.
Yeah.
And do you find when people maybe start initially before they really see the benefits of it, they're like, because they see what their coworkers making or what so-and-so's making. Do you have many times where people are like, oh, like I work so much harder than that person, and I should be making more than they're making, but they're making $1 more than me. Do you have anything like that arise from the Open Book?
So what individual people get paid is not part of Open Book. Really.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's not really part. I mean, you could figure out what the store manager's earning,
right?
Because we separate salaries from that. But yeah, that how much
it doesn't
each
get that
individual.
detailed.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a labor cost, and then everybody sees how much labor cost did we spend today and this week and this month.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, but we don't dial it into actually being transparent about you get this and you get this and you get this.
Okay.
Not that I'd necessarily opposed to
Yeah.
that. I mean, in public, not in public companies, but in government work, it's all out there.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
it's just it's a step we haven't taken, and
Okay.
because it's just more information, and we don't think it's that critical for people to. No.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like it has to take a lot of work to just constantly put those numbers out. Like, doesn't that take extra work to run your business that way?
Well, I'll tell you what's maybe different than what it was 20 years ago. We have to have a monthly P&L. I mean, that's the basis of everything. And we create a monthly P&L 3 weeks after it ends. That's
Okay.
our goal, to get it out by the 20th of the next month. So we know how each operation did. That takes a lot of setup work and figuring out how to do it. But it's the foundation for doing this other stuff, because the numbers have to be at least reasonably accurate, very accurate, hopefully, but at least reasonably accurate. And then the only job is to share it with people. And how do we share it? And that takes the form of we have weekly meetings, we call them huddles for in each location, hopefully, if everybody's on it. Some it's just like we're humans. Some stores are great at it. Some stores haven't quite figured it out,
Yeah.
the value of it. But interesting, the stores that are on it all the time are the most profitable, and everybody does well.
Huh.
So,
Funny how that works.
Yeah. So that's where really the goal is so we talk about the numbers, but also talk about other things that come up in the business, because drivers, our drivers and the people who are talking to people on the phone only even though only 40% of people call on the phone anymore. But they're the people actually connecting with customers that we can get feedback from. Their feedback is really vital.
Yeah, I love the. It was so cool to sit in on the one meeting you let me sit in. Where you just had. You had Lynn from One World, you had Kyle talking about Hive, you had Jay about the kitchen chair, and like everyone just going around talking about what they're doing, how things are going, and that kind of all hands meeting was thank you. It was a cool experience. Be like, oh, this is how, and it led to us having more. After I did that, me, myself, Lovey, and Aaron, our three kind of upper management. We're like, you know what? We need to start having a weekly meeting because we would just kind of talk to each other as we went. And I'm like, no, let's get something set. And we've done that ever since then.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, everybody hates meetings. I hate meetings too. But they're really we've brought the Pizza X managers. There's 7 of them now, along with whoever's leading them. Like forever on it's a weekly meeting that lasts sometimes close to 2 hours. I said meetings should only go an hour. These guys have a lot of input. They've been doing their jobs for 6, 10, 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And so, it's a very respectful thing. There's a lot of sharp guys, on that team that are really seasoned and I wouldn't want to run a meeting every week for that long, but by God, I've seen it be, really help us stick together and help us solve problems and help us just be a better customer, a better company for our people and for our customers.
Yeah, that's great. 2 hours can go pretty quick.
Yeah.
We've had, because we do a Monday check-in for an hour, and then Thursday morning we'll do 2 hours, and it flies by. There's things that just come up when you just take like, hey, this is time we're going to talk and we're going to work through things that would just get glazed over if you didn't set that time aside. And that's why I found it's been really important to like just set that aside. And you might think, oh, we've got nothing to meet about. And then you get in that meeting and next thing you know, 2 hours was not enough time.
Yeah, right.
Because you didn't realize how much stuff you had to fill them in on or that they had for you, or some problem comes up and you're like, okay, well, let's work through it. And 45 minutes on one issue is not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
What's you've always talked to? Is it pepperoni mushroom, the go-to Pizza X order? You always do the same one.
Pepperoni mushroom onion.
Pepperoni mushroom.
That's my favorite 3-topping pizza. Yeah,
that's a good.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
I love that. I do sausage over pepperoni. And instead of mushroom, I would do ricotta. I'm a big onion ricotta sausage.
Onion ricotta sausage. The crumbled sausage?
I like the plump.
Okay,
I like crumbled too, but
I
prefer, I think it's because I grew up on Papa John's.
I see.
And they did the plump.
Okay, got it.
But I do remember one of the first times I had crumbled at Pizza King. And this
crumbled sausage that is we have an Italian sausage. It's chunky as well. But this, if you order sausage at Pizza X, you're going to get this crumbled sausage. And I'm told that this area, like South Central Indiana, is the only place in the country that has that kind of sausage.
Really?
I've been told that, but things migrate, so maybe there's more of that, but that's where it started. This is where that kind of sausage kind of started and got popular. And like if you get a Nick Stromboli, it's that sausage on the Nick Stromboli. Although I just saw on Facebook somebody made a complaint and said the sausage has changed. So I hope they just had a bad experience.
Was that the post? I saw that one.
You saw that
it was
post,
all about. They went in on it.
Oh yeah.
The No Dishes podcast is brought to you by VisitBloomington.com. VisitBloomington.com is the best resource for restaurant and culinary information, special events, fun activities, places to stay, and more in our area. We share a similar mission here on the No Dishes podcast of highlighting local businesses and the people who make our community unique. We can't thank them enough for hopping on board. Check them out at VisitBloomington.com to easily plan your next meal, visit, or night out on the town. It's tough, man. The negative reviews, some are legitimate. Other ones are just like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do?
Did you talk to the people there? They want your business. I promise.
Yeah, I want the feedback.
Yeah.
And
want the feedback.
Jay messaged Lovey and I, Burton, and it was like, hey, went in, had this, it was all great. I'm like, awesome, thank you. But he's also done it the other way too. And I want that. Like your friends should be telling you about poor experiences and good experiences. Because you want to know, because you can't see everything. And so that it helps when you have friends within the community or even acquaintances that are like texting you or Facebook messaging and just being, hey, just a heads up, they're not mad, they don't want anything, and that helps so much more than a random Google review. I feel like
it does, it does, and not to judge those people who just haven't figured out how to, because they're angry. They feel somebody who has a bad experience, maybe they feel taken advantage of. It's that idea that when we get angry, there's some trigger to a trauma. It's not about the thing that happened. It's about the people who experience the thing. And so those make the greatest challenge for a leader of an enterprise, of any kind of business, is to try to we get angry people too. And my first, when somebody's angry, you can sort of have this attitude, well, why didn't you did you talk to somebody? Or, you can meet that, you can react to that anger with your own anger. But it's a great experience to go and meet that person where they are and say, damn it, I'm sorry. We want to figure out, we want to make it right. We thank you for speaking up. And then you just bend over. You do basically bend over backwards and make somebody make them happy.
Yeah, do whatever it takes. Recognize what the failure was.
Right.
Make sure they know that you're apologetic for it. Find out what is going to make them happy, and then make sure you execute so that they can come back. And tell them thank you for letting you know. I always do that. I'm always like, thank you for telling us. Because most people, I heard some stat one time about they just won't go back. They won't complain. They won't say anything. They just won't go back.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
And there are trolls, and business managers and owners are sort of like, the big pitfall is to think that a lot of the people who are complaining are just trolling.
Yeah.
And that's when a business starts to not get it.
No, I saw that. That was one of the most famous Kitchen Nightmares episodes. It was called Amy's Baking Company. And they were just the two craziest. It was like Sammy and Amy, and they were just like the two most narcissistic. And and he was talking about, he called them haters. He's like, oh, we just have all these haters. And anytime anyone had anything negative, get out. And it's like, obviously that show's very produced, but there was a real element of just if anyone had anything slightly negative to say, they were just hating and they were trolling, and not a good way to run a business.
Yeah. I mean, nobody likes to get criticized. So you just got to be willing to say, I screw up sometimes. Everybody does, and it just makes you more empathetic to other people when they screw up. It's not. They're not trying to take advantage of me. They just. But I can even. I bought a T-shirt online a few months ago, and I just noticed a charge on my credit card today, $29 from this company that I bought the thing with. And I realize now they've charged me 3 monthly $29.95 things for a T-shirt. Apparently, I had to join automatically their subscription thing to buy my T-shirt. So I wrote the guy. I was pretty pissed off.
Yeah, that's so shady.
And he's like, well, you signed it. I did credit to that. They got right back to me. He's like, well, you signed this when you signed up. So we're not done talking yet.
What a crazy way to operate a business, man. I'd be so mad.
They're probably laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but that's not sustainable.
I don't watch my credit card the things enough.
Yeah, me neither. I need to go start looking at that more closely. I'm just
3 months before I noticed.
Yeah, that's probably about what I would be. What's been anything new down at Woolery Mill? You guys just had the beer fest.
The Woolery Mill. Yeah, I'm really proud of those guys. So it's One World Catering or One World at Woolery Mill is the venue, and we do a lot of off-premise catering too. But
I know, a ton. I was at a wedding on Saturday at the Farr Center and One World Catering.
Oh wow,
and it was fantastic.
Oh, good.
Penne noodles,
God,
spaghetti.
I'd love to hear that.
Marinara, like mushroom Alfredo, and like another tomato sauce. Some garlic. Oh, it was so good.
I love hearing that.
My buddy who went with me said it was top 5 wedding spreads he's ever had.
Nice. Yeah. And see, that's the way it should be. Yeah. And that's why we got into this business. Yeah, I'm really, with the catering company is almost 15 years old. And we've really become the best caterer in town, and no question. And I couldn't say that 8 years ago. Maybe I could have, but I didn't have the confidence level that I have now. And we maybe were. Lynn might be fighting me, but we probably were. But since we got into Woolery, that's when we've really, I think, blossomed. We've got a beautiful kitchen down there.
Oh, it's massive.
Yeah. So I'm really, it's, we're the place, the catering, but I love the business. I love the business from a businessman's point of view. I do not enjoy working in that business. It's just too wild. It's too crazy. Let me work in Pizza X. That's about the only, or maybe hosting people in the old days at Lennie's when I knew what the hell I was doing. But that to me is super fun. But I love the catering business. What I love about it is it's really hard to do it well. It is hard to do it well. And when you do it well, and you make so much joy for people, because a wedding, hopefully people just get married once or twice. Yeah. And usually the second one is not as big. No, yeah. So that first wedding might be the biggest party ever. And Lennie and I got married in this little hall in Cortland, Ohio, little village, and somebody, the Brainards had started a catering hall, and it'd seat, it was just fluorescent lights and stuff. I mean, kind of like Buddy Bill's Bake Barn. I was down there for a political event not too long ago, kind of like that. And by God, but the food, we had the best food for our wedding. And then, we come to Bloomington, we get in the pizza business, and we're going along, and gradually, and we go to events, at the convention center, whatever, and the food is always shit. Can I say that?
Yeah,
we're not it's just shit. And embarrassing, frankly, especially at the convention center. And just gradually, and then we'd have people say, oh yeah, well, it's a wedding. The food's never good at weddings. And I'm like, what the hell?
Why can't it be?
But we just had a run. We had 30 years of really, really poor catering in Bloomington. I think, and I don't mind if anybody gets angry for me that said you could have done better.
Yeah.
By God, they could have done better. I mean, catering's expensive anyway. I'm kind of shocked by how expensive it is compared to restaurant food. I mean, I worry because a customer can think, well, it ought to be the price of restaurant food because they're coming to my house. They don't have to have a restaurant. Well, you don't. But what you do have to have is the right staff that can make every different party, because it's different. At least in a restaurant, you go in and you open the doors and it's the same today as it was yesterday.
Yeah, restaurant, they're coming to you. Catering is not that. Whereas you're going to them and catering, and it's not the same.
Always
There's
different.
a lot, many more variables.
And if you forget anything on that off-premise job, guess what? You needed it. You needed it bad. Yeah. Maybe the serving spoons.
We've done it before.
What a simple little thing is serving spoons.
Yeah, there's so many. We'll build your own Sunday bars, and we'll go, and I've had it. We're like, hey man, I forgot the spoons, and I forgot some, and I run out once. I was doing my radio show with Glass, and I was on the phone doing the radio show. We were doing an event for Kelly School. We got there, fortunately set up enough time that I had time to run to the store and get spoons, and got there at 4 o'clock. We were supposed to start serving at 4, but there was already a super long line. I was like, you guys should have lined up yet. But I'm on the radio. You're like, yeah, anyway, just sprinting in. Glass was even like, you okay, man? I'm good, doing great. Yeah. One World, you guys do such an amazing job. Woolery is such a beautiful venue. How long has Lynn been with you guys now?
Lynn has been with us for 11 years, I think.
Wow, okay.
And she's retiring she's retiring at the end of June.
Wow. Oh, I'm going to have to reach out to her. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I always love seeing Lynn at the chamber events or wherever.
She's gonna take a few months totally retired, and then I think she's gonna come back, and she's going to do a little training for us or some stuff. Retirement for a lot of people is overrated. And I think for Lynn, it probably will be. But she can use a break. She's been busting her hump for years, and she's incredible at the busince.
That'd be good.
She'll be the third person we've had retire from the company.
Wow. Who were the first two?
Zoe, we called him Mr. Zoe, who was a Chinese immigrant. Came over here with his wife, emigrated from China, got a job at Pizza X as a driver. He was older. He was probably 40 when he arrived here. And he ended up becoming a manager with us and running the South store for years and just doing a great job. Had some language, always had a little bit of language difficulty, but English was his second language, and English was not his best language, but did a great job. And he retired. He was the first one, and then oh my gosh. Roger Killian, who ran Pizza X for many years.
That's right, yeah.
So we started with Zoe. When Zoe, he was retiring, we thought, we need to get him a gift. He'd been working for us for over 20 years. And we're like, the old corporate thing was to give a gold watch. Do you
Right,
remember?
yeah.
Right? So we're like, let's just buy an ounce of gold. Let's buy an ounce of gold and give him the gold and not the watch, because nobody needs a watch anymore. So we did that. So that's become a tradition. So we give people an ounce of gold when they retire. Managers, who've been.
They're retiring, been there for a while.
Now, if gold goes up to like 10,000 an ounce, and I don't know,
might be silver.
Yeah. Maybe we'll go to silver.
It's like, you guys need
Bronze.
some copper. We found some catalytic converters.
Or maybe we should buy a bunch of gold now.
Boom. Go bury it.
Okay. Yeah.
Hear me out. It's great. That's my retirement plan. I've just been burying free cone cards.
Yeah. Okay.
Hoping they go up in value.
Oh. No, those won't go up. Oh, well, I guess they will.
A cone might be worth $12.
It's a good point.
You never know.
Should go up with inflation, like the I-bond.
Yeah. Maybe I should get another retirement plan. But you've been any new restaurants since the last time we talked? The last 3.5 years. Well, first, before we get that way, I know we talked before we started about Irish Line closing.
That's kind of a sad.
Because they were 40-some years.
They're 42, so they must have opened the same year as Pizza X. Yeah.
And it's just, it's
now,
so
Larry
sad.
died, right? Larry died some years ago. Larry and Hilda ran that restaurant for many, many years, and Hilda is still living, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay,
yeah.
And I don't know who's been running the restaurant for the last few years, whether it's one part of the family. I think it is. But they've been, consistent, so consistent over the years, and great food and a bar like no other, and kitchen. Have you ever seen the kitchen?
No, I've never been in there.
Well, it's upstairs.
Yep.
Those are long, and that's a long stair. Those must be 16-foot ceilings, right?
Oh, yeah. I know the front stairway.
Can you imagine? And I've dealt with restaurants with it. Well, like Lennie's is 2 floors, and the Wild Beat back in the day was 2 floors. And man, it doesn't make things a little harder. It makes things a lot harder. Just hard. All the servers get really good legs. They're like bikers.
Yeah. got crazy good calves.
But that's sad. It's nice. It's hard to keep things going for a long time, and we're committed. I think the ownership, I don't want to fault anybody. I'm hoping, I want to be very intentional about our brands when we pass them on, that we're just real careful, because it'd be great to preserve the value, because the value, well, granted, we get some value, obviously. The 2 deals that we've done, we're the bank, so we're not getting paid up front. We get a down payment, but they're paying us, so we want them to stay successful and not go belly up, obviously. But still, I think to have the owners sort of develop to go, I'm not going to be here for a while, forever. So we're going to develop people, into doing this thing. You remember, there's most restaurants just die of old age. And if they've been around for a long time, I'm thinking of the one that was on the square that everybody was so sad to lose, the diner. What was it called? Can't remember. But that, that'd been around for 40 years and just died. And it's very sad, especially if before they die, they kind of just get worse and worse for all the reasons we've kind of talked about.
Then you don't remember it as fondly. And
it's hard. Running a small restaurant, it requires a passionate leadership. And if you're engaged and doing the right things and being smart and not developing bad drug habits and drinking habits and things like that, you can make a good living.
Yeah. Which can be easier said than done in restaurants, depending on what kind of bar scene there is. Is that, I was going to say Ladyman's. Is that where you're
Ladyman's, thank
nice,
you.
Gary, we were both
good job.
That was the one I thought.
Ladyman's Cafe.
It was a little off the square, though, wasn't it? Because it was like...
Well, no, yeah, was it not on the square? But yeah, you're right. You're right. Just on Kirkwood.
Just
I meant on
west of
Kirkwood.
Washington on Kirkwood.
West of, east of Uptown.
You mentioned the Wild Beet, and Garrett, I'm glad because I was like, wait, we just talked about this, and he pulled it up. The Bloomington Town Planner is a community calendar owned and published by local residents John and Sharon Martin. Mailed out to Bloomington homes in December of each year, it features school schedules and community events. And don't forget the coupons at the bottom of the calendar. They'll save you money and help you decide on the next restaurant or retailer to check out here in the Bloomington area. Town Planner also has an online calendar which can be found at townplanner.com. Make sure to sign up for their weekly e-newsletter so you can stay on top of all the fun events going on around town. We're talking with Steve Volan when he was on. He was the last guest we recorded with. This might come out before that. I don't know. But he had the Cinemat in the same location that you had the Wild Beet.
That's right.
So that's 2 guests in a row that have been in that same little spot there.
Yeah.
I love that, owner. You've made the Bloomingpedia, Jeff.
Okay, there's not much there.
It was a music venue and an eatery.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know. You know,
I had this idea that people needed to, that music would just be so much more enjoyable if people had good food to eat.
Yeah, food and music are like my 2 favorite things.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, why aren't people doing that? And I got schooled on why people weren't doing it to the tune of several $100,000.
Oh man! Well, that must have been a sick venue then.
Yeah, it was. That wasn't including what we put into it. That was just the losses over 3 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was. It was that was an artistic moment in my life. Thank you, Pizza Axe, for making the money that we lost
for allowing you to have that artistic moment.
Yeah. And it was a moment. And people still have fond memories of the Wild Beet.
Yeah.
But
good run there for what, 2-3 years?
Yeah, we did that's almost what music, it's almost the performing arts, the performing arts are so valuable and important to all of us. And, we love it. And they just create magic that you don't get other ways. And I think forever the performing arts are they are just always hanging on by a thread. Now, not once you get Elvis or, I mean, once it's big enough, it's a kind of a different game. But as people are developing, these young people are learning to play out, and before bands have hit the big time, whatever, it's fun to support these things. And I just noticed, we did our thing with the Wild Beet. And then there was the Players Pub, supporting local music, but you can't make a living at that very well. Now, Dave Kubiak, great, fantastic job. He owns the Bluebird, of course, and just a super guy. And, that's just a stripped down, get a lot of people in there, maybe even too many. And sell them drugs, sell them illegal drugs, and pay
alcohol,
the band.
Alcohol. Just to clarify,
and and then you can make it work. But Dave's not getting rich either. And when he does a show where he does shows where he's got guarantees of the band that are big numbers.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's got to figure out how to do that. And thank God for the Bluebird. I mean, it just I was in for a show. I saw my first disco show.
Local
so guys, so good, and really enjoyed that. And so thankful. But Dave was able to buy that building, that some years back, and that really cements that. So glad. Man, when you own your real estate, and we've been tenants on most of our stuff forever, but we've started to be able to get a little bit of real estate. We own our commissary and kitchen share where that is, and we bought that downtown store. So it's nice. You feel I've lost 3 locations, I think, over the years to just the landlord said you're going to have to go. We want to do something else.
Wow.
So those are hard.
Yeah, it's tough. You build something up and you want to have control over your own destiny.
Yeah.
And you have to buy the land and the building to do that.
Yeah.
That's tough because don't always
it's
have
hard
the means
to do.
For that.
No, yeah, exactly.
All right, so new places since we've last talked that you maybe have been enjoying that's opened up or tried and true.
Since the pandemic, I have been cooking so much at home. And I'm not as busy, and
I
love to cook. I do love to cook. Now, where have I gone? There's the restaurant, the new place that.
Well, do you have a home specialty first? Do you have like, that's the Jeff special,
Oh,
which is a real thing at the bowling alley?
I've got a few things, but I've got so many. I'll make stuff for a while until I get tired of it. I might go on a Thai binge or an Indian binge, or a meatloaf binge.
Ooh, I love a good meatloaf.
Oh, I can make you this. I've got this meatloaf that I love. I use some Hive bread in the bottom, toasted Hive bread. Imagine the meat under the meatloaf. You've got kind of a piece. It's a meatloaf on toast.
Oh,
you
my
bake in
God.
it, so you got this crispy bottom.
How much ice cream do you need I'll trade you a 2.5 gallon tub for a loaf.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Deal.
Pleasure doing business with you. That's the whole reason I brought you here was to barter meatloaf.
In fact, I've got some Tyner Pond meat coming tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
They deliver. It's a grass-fed guy. It's a guy who, you know who that is, Tyner Pond?
I've heard that name.
It's the guy who had the cluster truck down here.
Interesting.
He's a very successful. He also started a successful mail company, email marketing company. That was in Indianapolis, and that's how he basically got very wealthy
off of
and
that,
got into food. The cluster truck thing has worked in some other markets, and they've got some really good tech.
Chris Baggett,
yeah,
man, I didn't know.
He's into food, and he sells grass fed beef and pork, and sells Gunthorpe pork. Yeah, he's really doing some great stuff.
Where is Tyner Pond?
They're up in around Indianapolis somewhere.
Okay, because I've heard that name. And I knew cluster truck. I was so excited when it came to Bloomington, and I used it quite a bit because I thought that was the first kind of ghost kitchen in Bloomington. And they were doing really a menu that spoke to me and my belly at least.
I ordered from them once, and it was really shit. And I'm like, I'm from a food service guy. I'm like, how do you have one kitchen making pad thai and burgers and pizza? And I'm like, this cannot be good.
Yeah, back to the old kitchen nightmares where he's like, how do you have 100 items?
You know how you start at Domino's? You make 2 sizes of pizza with 1 sauce and 1 crust and 13 toppings. That's how you get successful. Yeah. Not trying to do 200 things.
Keep it simple, stupid. But I thought it was, as a consumer, I thought it was fascinating. I'm like, they got all of this stuff. Right. But I had some that were good, some that weren't.
You did have some good ones. Okay.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, it was a mixed bag.
Well, I've got some of his meat coming, so I'll make you a meatloaf with his ground beef.
Amazing deal. You will not get rid of me. I'm going to start texting you every day.
I do eat. I'm kind of a comfort food. I'm not a fancy. Oh, another thing I've been cooking at home is steak, butcher block ribeyes.
Okay.
But have you been turned on to this reverse searing approach of steaks?
So as someone that doesn't cook, I have watched plenty of reels about reverse searing, though.
Have you done it?
No.
Oh my gosh. I've done it 3 times now. Best steaks I've ever had in my life.
Okay.
Like Ruth Chris sort of level, sort of. So essentially, for people who don't know look it up. Reverse sear. Essentially, you warm up the meat and then you just flash it in the pan to get some sear on it, and it's just the perfect. If you like, rare to medium rare meat, and it's so good. The reverse sear thing. Just look it up. And I kind of call it the poor man's sous vide because I stick it in my toaster oven and stick my get it to 118 degrees, and then
I need a video of you doing that. Just a big old ribeye and some small tongs.
I'm a simple man.
That's why I love you, Jeff. Sorry, I cut you off about somewhere you had been.
Well, the Uyghurs opened that restaurant over on Grant.
Marco Polo.
Thank you. Marco and Polo.
Marco and Polo.
And I just constantly hear great things about the people who've gone in there and discovered it.
That was one that I wrote a review. One of my favorite thing about the podcast or the review. I haven't written a review in a while, but that's what I used to do. That's what started the podcast, was writing reviews. And I wrote one for there. It got a lot of traction. And the next time I came in, they were like, we had so many people come in.
Oh, nice.
That's just the best feeling.
Yeah.
I've had that with people that have come on the podcast or whatever, and just they're like, it drove traffic. And I'm like, that's what we're here to do. Right. We're here to highlight and showcase and just what makes Bloomington special, the people, the great food, but also the people behind it. They have an amazing story, the couple there.
Oh, yeah.
Marco
And
Polo.
yeah. Oh, I could tell you stories about them in our connections. Yeah. Really, really interesting people and interesting food and an interesting dining experience. Everybody needs to go.
Yeah. It's not super high end. There's some little features that are really funny, I think.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. It's quirky. It's fun.
It is quirky.
I do love that the menu has a full lamb. You can order, it just says full lamb. I think you got to give them some notice. But on the menu, you're just like, oh, $500.
Get the whole lamb.
Get the whole lamb.
Huh.
I know, yeah. The sacrificial.
That sounds like fun.
They did, Garrett's scrolling through it now. God, I'm so hungry right now.
Yeah, stop there. Stop that. I'm not. I'm
Jeff
not
and I
looking.
are both being
I'm
tortured.
not looking. Yeah, I'm not looking at that.
All right. Well, Jeff, man.
Did we cover everything?
I think we did.
Okay.
I'm so good. What an honor to have you back after so long. We've both, I feel like, done a good amount of stuff in the last three and a half years, however long it's been. I love your transparency, everything you do for the community, and just you've been a mentor to me quite a bit over the years, and I really appreciate. You may not know it, but from we maybe meet up twice a year, but I'm always coming away with things.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So thanks for your time, man, and thanks for everything you do.
Glad. Well, thanks, Jordan. I'm always thrilled to come.
Yeah. Cheers, buddy.
Thanks, brother.
Yep. What another great episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Also, thanks to our Season 6 presenting sponsor, Visit Bloomington. Check them out at visitbloomington.com. We'll see you soon. In the meantime, keep those hands dry. This episode of the No Dishes Podcast was recorded, edited, and produced by Garrett Portinga of Green Hat Media in beautiful downtown Bloomington, Indiana.
No dishes.
No Dishes Media.
No Dishes Media.